I've made numerous changes to Platform Masters. And if you remember from the previous video, I just got the terrain stuff up and going, right? Well, that's pretty much what I've kind of been up to, and you might be noticing this new option here. And the menu help explains pretty much what it does. But I'm going to be covering that a little bit later. But for now, I'm going to explain some of the changes I made, and what's with all the numbers in that black area on the terrain map. And the null as well. That's just an indication to let me know what the slope is, so I can look at the terrain over a long span, or the overall shape of the terrain over a noticeably long span. So if you look at slope here, and you got 4V, 4 here, okay, and if I move to here, it's a 3. The cursor here marks which exact block, and I'm over. Now, if you look at this real closely here, can you tell where the difference in height is, considering there's even a 1, a 0, and a -1 right after? It's almost impossible to see unless you have really good vision and spend a lot of time looking. Or the difference between, like, for example, this over here. Can you see the difference between the 6 and the 7? It's almost impossible to tell the difference. Even with the maximum possible contrast, it's almost impossible. And thus, that's why I got these numbers on here. Now, what's with this black area? That's the point where it's the fallout point. What do I mean by fallout point? Well, I'll just exit debug menu and okay. This right at the extreme bottom of the screen right here. That's where this black line is at. That's basically what that is for. Now, what about editing the terrain? Or, yeah, unless you want to hold the right arrow key for a long time, especially if you're 90% of the way in. Yeah, I noticed the completion percentage and the such. Yeah, there's a pretty steep area here. It's pretty rare to see anything much beyond this, the 12. But yeah, I've got completion and overall miles. Yeah, I'm 58.25 miles. It's really, really long. And of course, if you're looking at this completion here, it's actually based on where the cursor is, just for reference. But about 7% completion is only this many blocks in. Yeah, there's 65,536 blocks if you want to really know. An awful lot. So, in order to actually quickly get over to where I'll leave off, that's what this is for. And yes, there's a scroll bar because there's more than 15 options. But, yep, BO for boss level, J for jumbo, SS for supersize, and TU for tutorial. There's also ST for story, which is also the same as this. But you might also be noticing here the about such and such blocks in. Yeah, the tutorial level's way out there. So, where did I leave off? It's around this area. It's actually a little past. Notice a sudden jump and stuff on all the positions and stuff. Well, all I gotta do is hold the arrow key even more. And, yep, there's a lot of null. You might also be wondering, curious, what if I delete NG? And you might also be noticing that no solid ground is present there instead. But what about editing the terrain and the such? Well, if you probably recall from my previous video, if I press the down arrow key, what do you suppose is going to happen? Well, if you recall from my previous video, this, and this will be a 0, right? Close. The reason for having it change at the end, as opposed to all that cloning, is because, well, it's much easier to change the shape and the like. Because I can go really, really fast this way. If this is any indication. And there are rules that I do follow for shaping the terrain. Awfully fast, isn't it? And yeah, notice the completion's going up pretty fast. So what about creating a hill? Well, that's actually pretty easy to do. Let's see, I'll bump these up. And I'll make you a little bit steeper. Yep, it's pretty fast, huh? I actually don't quite remember where I left off, but it's somewhere around in this area here. And that don't look right. Whatever, it really doesn't matter. So what about testing it? Is this climbable or not, with all default settings and such? Easy. Move character. Back. Exit debug menu. And now it's time to test. Okay, he doesn't even slow down at all. No problem there. But there is one area in here that's actually relatively difficult to climb. It's about in that area. Quite a ways over. Nope, that ain't it. Ah, this is... Yep. Yeah, the 32, negative 32. That's a really, really steep slope. And this is the only area where you'll actually see a slope that big. And it's actually in the middle between levels 3 and 4, roughly. But this right here is actually the highest point. So, how climbable is this? I'll have to test that. Move character, and so forth. With all default settings, do you think he can climb up this? Ooh, he's really slowing down. Hey, he makes it. Just barely, though. But if this was a little higher, there's some other tricks you can use, too, like running back and forth up and down the slopes repeatedly, and it'll become easier, like this one here. I'll start from there. Noticeably higher, gets a lot more speed. Still slows down, but he's much faster. At least that way you can climb almost any slope, with some exceptions, of course. Now, there are other changes that I've made to Platform Masters, and Lake Cavern is one such example. So what's different about this? Of course, it looks different too, as well. Okay, well, the water sure doesn't look different, but that lower area there near the bottom looks quite different. Well, there's actually a reason for that. Okay, it changed colors. Ah, I get it. It's transparent. Neat. Okay, what about underwater? And yes, I haven't added that functionality in yet. Now, look at this cloud right here. It's nice and bright, right? Okay, I'll put the cursor there so you can watch it. Yep, see how it changes and how clear it appears? And yeah, there's an odd thing here, and I already know what the cause of that is. I already know how to fix that too, except I need to update the scenery in this world, and a lot of things need to be changed. One of the big changes I need to make is a lot more decals at the beach and stuff are. There's about 20, 21 layers, maybe 22, I don't know. But that's just one of the changes that I've made. Of course, I've also got the terrain. I also want to show you something here, too. Now, you probably remember on springs, right? If you jump on them, you know what happens, right? If that speed is any indication. But, hey, that spring looks different. That's because I went around updating all the objects and stuff, so there's a lot more differences and changes and other enhancements. And yes, that's a green spring instead. If I recall, that yellow heart was actually a 20. Now it's a 50. Well, that's because I've realized that unless you want to grab a lot of hearts and stuff, you're better off just grabbing few, but also have to work for them just a little bit. And yes, there's a white spring. Okay, what's the special about White Spring? That's a lot of speed. My goodness. That's what the White Spring does. It's just a step up above the red. And I've actually had that planned for close to about it's not 6 months, 6 weeks, I think. It's about 2 months, give or take. But anyway, you might also be noticing that that green platform is apparently gone. Oh, that's where it is right there. I've moved it because it was causing problems. And it's also a lot slower. I haven't added crush functionality in yet either. Now, you want to see the water effect in other worlds? I do have a problem with it in this one. Uh-oh. Problem. What's the problem? Well, above the water, there's no problem here. But underwater, that's a different subject. And to go underwater, you gotta go down. If you're looking closely here at this odd orange spot here, it's actually because of the fog. I have yet to figure out any ways of working around the transparency issue and fog, which is also transparency. That is where I'm really at a loss right now. I have not a clue as to how to fix that, and the whole thing's a mess. Oh, and speaking of which, I've also fixed the bugs that I had with collision detection too. Bugs? Well, I'll demonstrate. First, I need to go up. And yes, I do have that odd line there. But I'm really going to go up, up, and up. Okay, I'm holding left. Okay, he didn't bounce from the bottom of that like he's supposed to. And yes, bouncing from the bottom is actually possible, and I'll even demonstrate it. Of course, with this kind of a high speed that I need. Okay, there's a bounce. Bounce. Okay. He's bouncing from the bottom. It's just because I resolved a bug that I've had with collision detection. Remember the case where he was hovering in the, where by holding an arrow key you can actually move and such? Well, now I'm going to jump, and I'm not going to press anything. Hey, he got shoved off the side, even though it was solid beforehand. Well, that's the fix I made to the bug. Now, you remember that position which I was when I stood to jump, right? Okay? A little too much over, and down you go. Of course, I've had that before, except I had to go noticeably over the edge. Almost about like here over the edge. Maybe there at the extreme, but I don't remember. But anyway, what about an outer ice shelf? Yep, that same thing too. And yeah, you're probably noticing this odd gap here, and that's because I haven't added that in yet. You might also be noticing that the edge of the water doesn't match up with the edge of the iceberg here, like this spot. And that's because I need another extra layer beyond that. And of course, underwater, you have this odd blue haze here, and it's from the tail. Just see, it's really easy to see now. Yep, I have yet to figure out a solution for that, and yes, there is no bottom. Of course, that's been known for a long time. And yes, that is the high-density clouds as seen with the Centus Mountains. Of course, the Centus Mountains haven't really been changed yet either. There's really no improvements that are needed for Centus Mountains. At least that I'm aware of. I know I haven't added the functionality for a collision with the jewels, but that's easy compared to the platforms. Real easy. And yes, no bottom. But I want to show you something awesome. Okay, Carnivalesta. What's so special about this? And I really do not see anything different. Can you see anything that's different? 'Cause I sure don't. Other than the fact that terrain is now present. Wasn't expecting that. Gotta backtrack. Now, do you see what the effect is? Should be pretty obvious. Notice how this area is light and this area is darker? Well, look at all these light poles and stuff. In the low-lying areas, well, this is a great way to get down real quick, you can easily see these light poles and stuff where lighting the ground. But really high up, you're awfully far from those light poles. Okay? And thus, as a consequence, things get dark. Whew, just barely. Really dark. That's as dark as it'll get. Holding left. Yep, I fixed that bug. But that's pretty much all the adjustments that I can think of that I made. And of course, everything is affected by the dark, including the character, but the character doesn't have it because of one thing. I need his bitmap image updated. Of all things, I hit the spring. And the red one, I didn't even press anything. But anyway, this video was created by Ulillillia. Thank you for watching.